Hello, this is week 69 in Intuitive Momentum Fitness. And last weekend we had that 3-day webinar. Thanks for joining me during the lives or during the replay. Hopefully that was helpful. And today we're following up a little bit, and I plan on continuing to just follow up and kind of reaffirm everything that we talked about, because it is such a different approach, a different mindset to fitness. And even just having the word fitness in our group title, Intuitive Momentum Fitness, can and even just knowing that this group is about health and fitness can allow some of those old mindsets and mental patterns to come in and kind of either give you some false guilt or some shame about, being in this group that's focused on fitness and you're eating whatever you're eating, or, not exercising the way you wanted to, or whatever. So it is a continual practice of letting go of old mindsets and really moving forward in abundance, knowing that your body is for you, that it wants to be healthy, and all we're doing is looking for the best ways to support our bodies and what our bodies naturally already want to do. So anytime you need a reminder, I'm here for that. So even if it's the same thing every week, if you say, hey, I could use a refresher on why it's okay for me not to push myself to death in my fitness program, you can ask for that reaffirmation every single week. So that's what we're here for. That's how we intend to support each other. And so we're just gonna keep at it until it's just like the process of positive change that I talked about. You have to be okay with being a stranger to yourself until that stranger becomes you. And I can very clearly now at this point look back at different periods of my life and realize, wow, I don't relate to that mindset anymore. And it depends on the area of life and the time in my life, but I can go back 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, and I'm different people in each of those time frames because I've been intending to allow myself to expand to the point where I don't recognize my former self. And it's not that I have been aware that I can at times kind of minimize or see my younger self as more naive or kind of simple or not yet knowledgeable or whatever. And I'm actively working on changing that perspective of myself, because at every point I was doing the best that I could. And I believe that everyone is doing the best they can, even in their, absolute dysfunction, based on their beliefs and what they know and what they've experienced. They are doing the best that they can. And it's the same thing with our body, and it's the same thing in our group. So as a group, we are growing and expanding in our understanding of what it means to care for our bodies, to be healthy, to be fit, and to have grace for ourselves, compassion for ourselves, to allow ourselves to be where we're at in the moment, and not feel any shame or judgment or criticism for where we're at in the moment. So yesterday I shared this quote in the group, and I love it a lot. It by S.C. Laurie. You could have grown cold, but you grew courageous instead. You could have given up, but you kept on going. You could have seen obstacles, but you called them adventures. You could have called them weeds, but instead you called them wildflowers. You could have died a caterpillar, but you fought on to be a butterfly. You could have denied yourself goodness, but instead you chose to show yourself some self-love. You could have defined yourself by the dark days, but instead, through them, you realized your light. And I think that's such a hopeful, helpful perspective to have, because in our brains and in our self-talk, we can use that positive viewpoint or that negative viewpoint. And it's almost like, I've heard the analogy of there's a courtroom in your head and there's two lawyers, hopefully, because sometimes there's only one lawyer, and that lawyer is bringing up all of these charges and all of this evidence against you, and showing you how incompetent and incapable and inconsistent and hypocritical and shameful or whatever you are in various situations. And sometimes the other lawyer doesn't show up. And we need the other lawyer to offer opposing evidence and hopefully win the jury over, which is all of you, all of yourself. And that's what I believe this quote does. It's like an example of this defense lawyer that we need in our own heads sometimes. You could have grown cold, but you grew courageous instead. You could have given up, but you kept on going. You could have seen obstacles, but you called them adventures. You could have called them weeds, but instead you called them wildflowers. You could have died a caterpillar, but you fought on to be a butterfly. You could have denied yourself goodness, but instead you chose to show yourself self-love. You could have defined yourself by the dark days, but instead through them you realized your light. So that positive self-talk, that the way that you speak to yourself in your own head, look at that and discern which lawyer is talking in the courtroom at the moment, and choose to be your ally, be your defense lawyer, be your best friend, be your truly unconditionally loving mother, whether you had one in real life or not, to be a really caring, protective father to yourself, whether you had one in real life or not. So, I hope that's encouraging, and take care of yourself. You are the hero of your story. You are, as I keep talking about, more responsible for yourself than anyone on earth. So be a good caretaker of you. So I want to get to your comments here, and we've got some good ones. So Susie says, I might not get to listen live, but since the webinar, I've been thinking about the concept of listening to your body and adjusting what you're doing activity-wise, especially around rest and recovery. And just because I know Susie, she is enrolled in a million dance classes and does exercise classes and goes swimming and all this stuff. So she's constantly using her body. I tend to do active recovery things, and I'm horrible about taking any full-on no activity rest days. The challenge for me comes in trying to figure out how much rest and what type of rest recovery I need, especially when I do have or if I have an overuse injury in play, or dealing with the frustration with said overuse when said overuse injury is not recovering fast enough. Yeah, so great question. Rest and recovery is so important when, specifically around strength training. Rest and recovery is actually when you get stronger. A lot of people assume that they're getting stronger as they lift, but you're actually tearing your muscles down. So you don't get the benefit of lifting until after you've recovered. And so it's a vital piece of the process to actually rest and recover. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do no activity days. It just means that you have to do activity that doesn't require recovery. And so those kinds of activities are the ones that increase circulation, but don't really add any stress to the body, don't really cost the body anything. That would include walking. You're not pushing yourself, you're just moving and increasing circulation. So there's oxygen and nutrient delivery because of the extra circulation. So every cell in the body gets benefit from that, but your metabolism doesn't go up very much because you're not burning a lot of calories, and therefore you don't need a lot of recovery. That is active recovery. And it's very essential, very beneficial. Swimming is another one, and I'm not talking about, pushing yourself in lap swim, but very leisurely moving through the water. You don't even have to be swimming. You can just be kind of walking around, moving your arms back and forth, moving through the water, twisting and turning, just kind of maybe doing some somersaults in the water. Whatever it is, like moving gently through that minimal resistance, that gentle resistance, increases circulation, helps your tissues recover. And then the other one is like a stationary bike or recumbent bike. You can even use a regular bike if your terrain is not intense. So just, again, super leisurely, you're not reaching any burn, you're not reaching any buildup of lactic acid in the muscles. You're just moving in a very gentle, easy, flowing way, and that's going to be good recovery. The other recovery is stretching. So that does help circulation. It doesn't get the blood moving quite as much, but it opens pathways for the blood. So full body stretch session, nice and leisurely, pushing to a little bit of resistance, but not past any resistance. And that's a great way to help recovery. So as far as how often you need to do that, that really depends on you. And I know you've got a lot of classes and even some performances that you participate in and work toward. So active recovery is still helpful even on non-rest days. But if you can get some rest days in there, then you can still do the active recovery. So walk, swim, bike, stretch. If I'm not doing a workout, I still try to get some time for mobility and stretching exercises. So, and you talked about the impatience waiting for healing to happen. And I know that when you're an active person, you've got a lot of commitments. Like anytime you get injured, you just want to push past it. But it is so helpful to be smart about it, to listen to your body, to honor it. You're not lazy, you're not a wimp if you're thinking, well, I could probably do the class tonight, but I have a feeling that it's going to set me back. It's totally okay to take the night and either do no activity or do some walking, swimming, biking, or stretching. So please do honor your body in the time frame that it needs for recovery. So I actually have recently injured myself. I have various things that I'm working through. It seems like all the time. Like there's some joint or muscle group that is I'm kind of babying at the time, and so I have to do extra things to help it recover and make sure I'm not injuring it further. But recently it's a forearm injury and tennis elbow from pickleball. So I've had an issue in the past where, because I'm giving massages all the time and I'm lifting weights all the time, which includes back day and biceps, so this tendon and triceps on the backside, the elbow joint is kind of an overused joint, especially on my right side where I play pickleball right-handed. So it's not hard to believe that I could overuse that joint and the forearm sometimes. So this is a pickleball paddle I used for about a year and absolutely love it. It is very thin, moves through the air really well, and just love the touch and feel of it. But it was a used one. It was a demo before the guy that had it before me got it, and so then I got it used, and it's got some cracks and fallen apart, and got some tape on it. Even though it's mostly good, and if it sounds like there's something cracked on the inside too, because I hit the ball in certain spots, and I can hear it make a really weird sound. It sounds like it's cracked. So I decided to get a new one, and I got more of a traditional style paddle with the thick edge, and it's a thick paddle in general, but it's got the edge guard, and it moves differently through the air. So even though it was a lighter paddle than the other one by 0.2 ounces, I started, from the time I got it at the end of February, I started feeling ache in these muscles, both sides, especially out here. And so the backhand was starting to get really painful. So I kept just thinking I need to give it some time to let the muscle adjust to the new paddle, and it was not healing. And by the end of a typical 2-hour session, it was so painful, and every time I hit a backhand, it was like shooting pain all the way up the muscle, and so I kept putting heat on it and helping the swelling happen, which it's supposed to happen, and wrapping it and all this stuff and massaging it myself. And after a couple months, I was able to get a massage specifically for my forearm, and it was about 15-20 minute massage, and I thought, well, hopefully that helps it heal, because I've previously had success with that in the bicep tendon. And the next time I played, it was just so painful, and even though it had been feeling better between the massage and playing, when I played with the paddle, it was just so painful I could hardly use it. So I went back to the old paddle, and that was a little bit better, but it wasn't helping so much. And so then I took a few days off, which was about a week, because I only played like twice a week. And I did some research, and this paddle here, they specifically have technology in there to dampen the vibration. So if you probably can't hear it, but it's actually got like sand all throughout and all these individual compartments. So when the ball hits it, it doesn't reverberate up through the arm. And it's been way better since I got this, and I can tell that my forearm is healing. It's still healing, but there is no extreme pain like there was before. And I like the last 4 days I played a little bit every single day, and no major problems and no setbacks like I experienced every single time with the previous paddle. So I'm just going to keep playing with this one and keep massaging my arm and applying essential oil, cream and stuff like that on the arm until it's fully healed. So that's a little personal story relating to rest and recovery and giving it time to heal and making any accommodation that I need to help healing. And I should have gotten the new paddle long before. I just paid good quality money for a good quality paddle, and it is a great paddle, the one that hurt me, but it just like didn't work with my style, so I needed to have responded to that a little bit earlier. So Susie goes on to say, then an observation tonight while I was in my free weights class. Lately, I've noticed I'm able to repetitively lift more weight in some areas than I had before. Like I'd been lifting in one range, and then just recently I noticed I was able to comfortably shift up. There probably are a few factors involved in that, but I wonder if the fact that I've more recently been trying to eat more protein also plays a role. Also, I wonder if it's something that occurs with any activity that you train and don't notice. You train and don't notice much change, and then you have a significant breakthrough. Yes. I noticed something similar would happen for me when I was learning to swim and trying to increase my distance. So that is how plateaus work. The reason you work hard and consistently for a while before seeing any change, and sometimes the change happens all of a sudden when nothing was happening for a while, is your body's love of homeostasis. So your hypothalamus and pituitary are primarily in charge of, or I'm not sure about primarily, but they are in charge of regulating all of the hormone levels and every other, status quo homeostasis piece of the body. So including, what your resting metabolism is, what your normal amount of body fat is, your normal amount of lean tissue, and it's constantly reading your lifestyle, your diet, your movement patterns, kind of what you do every day to make sure that it is optimized for your life. So when you add something new, the easiest example is a bigger change. Like if you begin strength training for the first time since you gave piggyback rides when you were a kid. I keep getting notifications on my phone. It's throwing me off. Texts and other apps giving me notifications. So if you start strength training for the first time in a really long time, then your body isn't sure quite yet whether this is the new normal or just a weird thing that's happening for a couple weeks. And that's why most of the adaptation the first 3-4 weeks is actually neural coordination in the muscle. So the strength gains that you have those first few weeks to a month are really just the nerves getting organized in controlling muscle motor units better and recruiting more of them so that you can lift heavier. And then after that point, with consistency, then your hypothalamus and pituitary are like, oh, So this is actually going to be how we're doing things now. So we better adapt. We better start increasing muscle density. We may have to switch to utilizing fat stores for energy, and whatever other adjustments that it needs to make between estrogen and progesterone and testosterone and all of those, cortisol, all those subtle adjustments that your body has to make in order to adapt to the life that you're living. So, all that to say, yes, plateaus are real. Sometimes it takes a month to convince your body that this is the new thing, this is our new reality, and it's not just a crazy stressful couple of weeks. Like if you were to move and you were having to lift a whole bunch of boxes and furniture for a couple of weeks, getting out of one house and into another house or whatever, and setting up the home and all of that. And that was just a crazy couple of weeks versus something that you're consistently doing. So your body is waiting to see if you're consistent, and so it's building new neural pathways in the muscle and in the brain. Anytime you learn something new, you were talking about swimming and trying to increase your distance. So same thing, your heart and your lungs are also being trained to support your body for longer periods of time, to recover quicker and all that stuff. So that is true. You also mentioned wondering if it had to do with, let's see. Okay, so you recently noticed that you were suddenly able to lift more in your strength class, your free weight class, and you wondered if protein was involved with that because you've been eating more protein. And absolutely. So every single cell in your body is made of amino acids, and it's the second ingredient to water in every cell. So if you are strength training, then you will notice an improvement if you suddenly increase your protein intake, if it was possibly insufficient previously. So good job for that. So thank you, Susie, for sharing, and hopefully that answers your questions. If not, please post or comment, and we'll try to be more thorough. So Catherine says, I've been thinking mostly about consistent small changes, including water with added electrolytes, the consistent and simple push, pull, and lunge exercises, and a consistent sleep and eat pattern. I love that. My question to you is, do you add electrolytes to your water all day long or just once? So I'm still in the process of experimenting, see what my body thinks, and I've been in the process of experimenting with nutrition for 19-20 years now, and it seems like it's been a fine-tuning process, and sometimes I wish I could go back and tell my younger self what's working best for me now, because I know better. But on the other hand, I also know that I may not have been ready for the way that I eat now, and it might have been too micromanaging or arm wrestling to get myself to eat a way that I wasn't yet ready to eat. And I feel like that's the same with every area of life. Like even no matter what it is, like you could possibly go back and tell your younger self, hey, this is what I discovered later, so jump on it now and get a head start. But if you're not mentally and emotionally ready to make that change yet, then it's not going to be as effective. So it is okay to trust the journey. It is okay to trust your sovereignty over your own body. your ability to listen to your body and get feedback from it and adjust as you go. So, I love that you're adding the electrolytes. So far, I'm just using one stick of the Myoscience electrolytes. So it's Myoscience electrolyte sticks, and you can kind of see that there, and look at the weird spelling of Myoscience. And so if you look at their website, they usually have really reasonable prices on that. So this one contains potassium, real salts, magnesium, calcium, taurine, and creatine. And it seems to be really balanced. And I know that for the electrolytes, there does need to be a balance of the minerals, and I don't yet know what that is. And it sounds like Nicole might have some recipes if you want to make your own. But so I've been using one of these a day, usually in the afternoon, because I typically lift midday, and then sometimes I'll play pickleball or volleyball in the evening, and I like around 5. And so that is kind of a good time to boost my electrolytes after one workout and before another. The other thing that I've gotten recently, and I've only a few weeks into it, is Quinton, and it looks like Quinton, but I've heard it pronounced Quinton. So this is actual seawater, and I'm not sure of the harvest process, but all the balance of the minerals in seawater is exactly the same, apparently, as blood. So it comes in these little glass vials. Break off one, hold it over your water, break off the other, and it drains into your water. And so I'm doing that in the morning before breakfast. Sometimes I eat breakfast. You're supposed to do it on an empty stomach, and so sometimes I start breakfast before remembering to do it. But so that's what I'm trying as well. So those are my current experimentations, and if I need to, I will add some Himalayan salt to my water, or real sea salt. So those are options as well. But there's nothing wrong with experimenting, seeing the feedback your body gives you. And if you've ordered the Myoscience electrolyte sticks and you start with one packet a day at whatever time of the day feels best to you, doing it in the morning might give you a nice little boost. So, just experiment, play with it, listen to the feedback, really try to pay attention to your body. So many in society, I know you guys are different because you're here and you're empathic, and you kind of tend to have the skills to slow down and pay attention better. But a lot of people are just numbed out to their body. So if they feel low energy, they'll take a stimulant. If they've got a headache, they'll take a pill. If they've got a stomachache, they'll take a pill. If they're backed up, they'll drink some juice to get them going again. And so there's a pill and a drug and a drink and a potion for everything. But there's also a cause for everything that your body's experiencing. So if you support your body in the way that it needs, you should see a positive result. So play with that and be consistent with that. So in general, I love your approach, Catherine. Just intending to be consistent with these small changes. So you're talking about adding electrolytes, doing simple push-pull lunge exercises, sleeping patterns and eating patterns. So that's really fantastic. Once that becomes a part of your life, then it will be easy to make other simple adjustments that will then become a part of your life, and then you can make other simple adjustments. So don't feel like you have to get it all perfect right now. Start with what you can do, what feels reasonable, what feels emotionally, mentally easy, very doable. Then be consistent with that. And once that's your new lifestyle, then you can look for other simple adjustments to make. So good job. Keep at it. And I can't wait to hear how it goes. And if there's issues along the way, let me know, because I'm sure I've experienced that as well and witnessed it with others. So then Nicole says, a question from me: in what specific ways will the Holy Spirit lead us trauma survivors to leave legalistic burdens of shoulds or shouldn'ts and find freedom to be transformed by Christ's death and resurrection? How does the tree of knowledge versus rebirth specifically affect born-again believers as we find ourselves wrestling with our own daily struggle and past pain? So while this space isn't where we discuss Christian theology, I think I understand what your pinpoint question is, and so you can clarify with me if this is not correct. But how do we trust for healing when healing is still in process? So it's like, if we believe the body is always doing the best it can, how do we continue to have goals and desires for it and continue to have to deal with the fact that it's not healthy and it's not necessarily in the best place it could be, even though it's in the best place it can be right now? I feel like it's similar to, if you love your body where it's at right now, then does that mean you don't have any goals or desires for it? How do you actually relax and enjoy being in your body and love your body when you have very clear things that you wish were different about it? And I do believe that both can happen at the same time. You can be in both spaces at the same time, because as I've said, I believe the body is always doing the best it can in the moment for whatever it's dealing with. And so I can be grateful to my body for that. I can love my body because it is always doing the best it can. But I know that improved health is also possible. And so I'm, at the same time as having gratitude for my body, looking for ways to support it more accurately, more efficiently, and fine-tune the ways that I love and support and care for my body. So a parallel to that is the internal trauma healing, where some of us have been through some really stinky stuff and it affects us. Like, there are moments when I'm forced to remember that I have been traumatized because I walk into a situation and all of it reminds me of something in the past, and all of a sudden I'm having an internal panic attack, and my body is freezing up and my whole nervous system has shifted over to sympathetic response, and that is one of the things that I think in recent years has hit me really hard, because for most of my healing journey, so while I was in trauma, while I was, developing complex PTSD for the first 22 years of my life, I held on to hope and, believing and trusting that there was going to be a future day when I was going to have more freedom, more autonomy. I was going to be able to make decisions about my own life, and I was going to be able to pursue health more intently, more freely. And then I got to that point, and I was like pushing and pushing and pushing, get out of my comfort zone, out of my comfort zone, out of my comfort zone, and expanding, and trying, learning to play soccer in my mid-20s, learning to play volleyball in my mid-20s, and having never played any kind of sports before in any official or coached capacity, and learning how to be a professional in business when my dad never took me seriously. And here I am representing the YMCA or Sam Fitness, the hospital-owned fitness organization, or whatever else. And so like all of these big shifts happen, and I'm growing and expanding in very obvious ways. And then I reached a point a couple of years ago where I feel like, oh man, I've experienced so much growth and so much expansion and so much healing. Why do I still run into these moments where complex PTSD takes over my body, and I'm having an emotional flashback, and having an internal panic attack that I'm trying not to show to anyone else, and I'm trying to function, and why does that still keep happening? And I should be past this by now, because even when I was developing complex PTSD, I was holding on to hope and having a vision for the future and trying to be strong and hang on to all the good things that I believed were coming and all of this stuff. And so now, when all the good things have happened and I'm in a completely different place in life, literally and internally and emotionally, why do I keep having these absolutely debilitating moments that kick me back into my most intense internal trauma experiences? And that's when I realized, you know what, I've not been taking my trauma seriously enough. I was just always trying to show everyone, I can handle it, I'm fine, I can deal with this, I can bear these responsibilities, because that was what I needed to do for the first 15 years of my exodus, my escape and emancipation. And so I started realizing, I really, if I had a physical injury, and let's say, I like this analogy of a girl on a soccer team. She's let's say she's 9 years old. She breaks her leg, and she's on in a cast, and she's doing therapy and rehab and stuff. And let's say she's sitting on the sideline, and some random person comes up to her and says, "Hey, why aren't you playing soccer?" And she's like, "Well, I broke my leg." And it's like, "Well, that was in the past. Like, why don't you get past it? Why don't you move on from the past? And your body is healing, so just claim it and move on. Just forget the past. Stop dwelling in the past." And I've literally had people tell me that. A couple of years ago, a friend that I met in town here became a Facebook friend, and one time she plays pickleball as well. And one time we were setting up, and she was like, "Hey, I just wanted to ask you, have you thought about just letting go of the past?" and you kind of just have to have grace with those people, because they're the kind of people that have not experienced anything that traumatic and literally can't imagine what that experience was like. Like, I've had so many people look at me when I'm telling them about something that happened when I was a kid, like, is he making this up? Like, cause that's not real. That doesn't happen. You know, normal families aren't like that. And that's true. But no, it literally happened. And, you know, just like the girl that has the broken leg in the cast, she has to deal with that. And she has to allow the time and have the patience and have the self-compassion to not be where she wants to be right now, but know that she's going to be where she wants to be soon. And she has to be there and have that grace and compassion on it, and do the work, do the recovery, do the exercises, the rehab, to build everything back up to the point where she can play soccer again. And it is okay to focus on the past. You know, like she broke her leg in the past, and it's still healing, and it's still the past is still causing issues for her, and she has to allow those issues to happen and to be in process and be in healing and have compassion on herself. And what I like about that, the analogy of the girl on the soccer team, is that her current reality is that she cannot play soccer. And yet, at the same time, she still has a place on the soccer team roster, because they trust that healing is going to happen. And I believe that's the same way for us. Like, just because we are aware that the leg is broken and we're having to do these really simplistic rehab movements and exercises to take care of a broken leg, doesn't mean that there is also the reality that I still have a spot on the soccer team, and I'm still considered a member of the team, even though I also, reality, can't play right now. And so neither one cancels the other out. So for us and our internal traumas and our past injuries and experiences, there is the child version of us that still needs comfort and safety and support and protection and encouragement. And so there are aspects of us that are every age we ever were that still live inside. And it's like a community of you. And sometimes you need to have a family sit down and hear everyone out, and not silence anyone like you were silenced when you were that age, and not ignore you like you were at that age, but let everyone have a say, let everyone speak their voice. You know, no matter how true you now believe that thought to be, it's still an internal part of you until it comes up for review. And so allowing yourself to be in the past, to cry, to feel the pain, to acknowledge the pain, to bless the pain and release the pain, is all part of the process. So there's a meditation I've learned from Teal Swan, where if if you're experiencing a really intense emotion and you're able to witness yourself to the point where you recognize that this emotion is something that I have felt over and over and over and over and over again throughout my life, then when you have a moment to be quiet with yourself, think back, when was the very first time I felt this? The earliest time I can remember feeling this pain, and what was that situation? And allow yourself to be back in that situation, to be however old you were, and to know what you knew, and to feel everything in your body as painfully as it actually was. And just be there, allow everything, all those emotions to come up, and witness those emotions. So you move into your child self to allow all those emotions to come up, and then move into your present self to be the witness of those emotions and to have compassion on your child self. And then as the adult self, as your current self, step in and offer some support to the child self. Let your child self know that you're going to be there for them, you're going to take care of them, you're going to protect them, you're going to be their cheerleader, you're proud of them. In certain situations you may need to stand up for your child self, in front of your child self, to some other figure, a parent or teacher or someone else, and set them straight on behalf of your child self. And as you do that and you allow all the feelings to happen, just the allowing and the witnessing is enough to bring intense healing to that moment. Most things that are still unhealed are still unwitnessed. It's still unheld. And so when you can hold that area and witness that area, then that is a powerful place to be. There's kind of an amazing visual of this. If you've ever seen Batman Begins, and I love stories, always love stories. I feel like there's a story for everything, and there's so much wisdom in stories. But when he is a kid and he loses his parents and he is heartbroken, and he runs out of the house and into the woods, and he falls through the hole in the ground. He doesn't know that he's fallen into a bat cave, and then all of a sudden the bats come flying out and it terrifies him. Actually, this was right before he lost his parents, but and then his dad comes and he saves him out of the hole and all of that. Later on, when he's an adult, he learns and understands that he has to face his fear. He has to be brave enough to face the thing that frightens him the most. And so because of that childhood experience with the bats, he knows that that is the thing that is probably going to evoke the most fear in his body. And so he goes back to the cave and he stands in the midst of all the bats flying around him, and he just stays in his fear. And he witnesses his fear, and he becomes his fear. And I think that is something that is such a powerful picture for how we can move toward our wounding and our fear, our shame, all of it. Move toward it, witness it, love it, and then release it. And through all of this, remembering to focus on gratitude, because people talk about toxic positivity, and I don't want gratitude to get stuck in toxic positivity. And it could, if you are not witnessing yourself and not providing grace for yourself and forgiveness for yourself by honoring the wounds that you have and the things that need to be addressed and looked at. But at the same time, that gratitude doesn't have to mean that you never look at those things, or looking at those things doesn't mean you aren't grateful either. So there is a balance, and gratitude, another thing I just saw, Teal Swan posted this reel. I forget if it was officially a reel or something else, but whatever they call it on Instagram. There's a couple different versions, but it was just her saying, if you've ever done something for someone and they are just so grateful, it makes it really easy and delightful to do that for them again, or to do something else for them because they show gratitude. And it's similar to how the universe responds to us. So if we go through life looking for all the things that are going wrong and everything that's horrible, we're gonna find it because we're looking for it. It's just like Jesus said, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be opened, ask and it will be given to you. And so what are you seeking? What are you asking for? What doors are you knocking on? And if it's mostly gratitude and good things, then that's what you're going to find more of, and that's what is going to naturally be magnetized to you. So keep gratitude in the mix. So let me see, checking on here. Okay, so just making sure there were no comments on the video because my phone didn't show any. Okay, so looks like we're all good. So hopefully this was encouraging and helpful. As always, if there's any questions, feel free to post in the group, share what's going on for you and what questions you might have, and look forward to connecting with you soon. So love you guys. Have a great rest of your week.